Aemond Targaryen, the son of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa, was a key figure in the Targaryen family's history and began the beginning of a very long battle of succession. King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa had Aemond in 55 AC on Dragonstone. King Jaehaerys was so happy to have a boy. As his first son died in infancy, he named Aemond Prince of Dragonstone, making him heir to the throne and overlooking his eldest living child, Daenerys. This never sat well with the good Queen Alyssa, as she would say, Daenerys is older, she should be queen. Jaehaerys would combat this, saying, she will be queen when she marries Aemond. Unfortunately, Daenerys died early in childhood. As Aemond grew older, he became a capable knight and dragon rider of Caraxes. Aemond was very close with his siblings, notably his younger brother Baelon. But Aemond was often seen very friendly with the late Queen Alyssa's daughter, Jocelyn Baratheon. Jaehaerys and Alyssa announced soon after that the two would marry. His marriage was a political alliance meant to strengthen ties between the Targaryens and the Baratheons, one of the most powerful houses in the realm. Aemond and Jocelyn had only one child, Princess Rhaenys. She had black hair like her mother and violet eyes like her father. The good Queen Alyssa called her granddaughter our queen-to-be. As she grew older, she became an accomplished dragon rider and married Corlys Velaryon. Aemond tragically died in 92 AC while on campaign in Tarth, hit by a crossbow bolt during a skirmish. Grief swept the Seven Kingdoms. Aemond was well loved by his parents, his siblings, and most notably his daughter Rhaenys, who was with child when her father died and wept, knowing her unborn child would never meet him. Aemond's death led to a major succession dispute, as his daughter Rhaenys was technically his heir, but many lords refused to recognize her claim because she was a woman. Aemond's lineage became a significant factor in the eventual Dance of the Dragons, as Rhaenys and her descendants fought for their claim to the throne. Baelon Targaryen was born in 57 AC and was the second son of Jaehaerys and Alyssa to live beyond childhood. Baelon was known as the Spring Prince due to his cheerful and energetic personality. He was adored by his parents, the court, and the people for his valor, charisma, and sense of duty. Baelon admired his older brother and was known to follow him everywhere he went as a child. When Aemond was slain in Tarth, Baelon flew on Vaegon to avenge his brother and fought against the exiles with Dark Sister. He was cheered by crowds when he returned to King's Landing, but he fell into his mother's arms and could only weep. I slew 1,000 of them, he said, but it will not bring him back. And the queen stroked his hair and said, I know, I know. Baelon was married to his sister, Alyssa Targaryen, but unlike many political or arranged marriages, Baelon and Alyssa's relationship was genuinely affectionate. They were known to have a strong bond and were deeply devoted to each other. Together, they had 2 children, Viserys, their eldest son, who later became King of Westeros, and Daemon Targaryen, the infamous rogue prince, a daring and controversial figure in Targaryen history. Alyssa died in 84 AC, shortly after giving birth to her stillborn son, Aegon. Her death was a devastating blow to Baelon, who never remarried, though he was sought after by many, including his sister, Viserra. Baelon Targaryen earned the title Baelon the Brave due to his fearless nature. He was a skilled warrior who excelled in battle and rider of one of the largest and most formidable dragons of the time. In 101 AC, at the age of 44, Baelon died unexpectedly of a ruptured appendix. His death brought grief to the Seven Kingdoms and plunged the realm into uncertainty over the succession once again. Princess Alyssa was born in 60 AC. She was named after her grandmother, Alyssa Velaryon, and was the first daughter of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa to survive childhood. As a young child, Alyssa followed her brother Baelon everywhere. Baelon, 4 years older, often complained that she was like a puppy, but Alyssa soon understood the annoyance, as her younger sister Maegelle began to cling to her the same way as she had to Baelon. Alyssa did not have the typical Valyrian silver hair. But instead she had dirty blonde hair, which was often tangled, and mismatched eyes, one violet, the other green. When Alyssa was 6 years old, she was accidentally hit in the face by a wooden sword, which broke her nose. It healed crooked, but this did not seem to bother her. As a child, she did not act like a girl and shunned their company. She would dress in boys' clothes whenever possible and preferred to ride, climb, and duel with wooden swords. And like her brothers before her, Alyssa was meant to be a dragon rider. According to tales, the dragon keepers had to convince her not to claim Balerion by telling her, "He is old and slow, princess. Surely you want a swifter mount." In the end, they prevailed, and Princess Alyssa claimed Maegelle. Alyssa was briefly a candidate to be married to Prince Aemond, but Queen Alyssa refused. She stated to King Jaehaerys, "Alyssa is for Baelon. She has been following him around since she could walk. They are as close as you and I were at their age." And the two were married in 75 AC. Alyssa and Baelon had 2 sons, Viserra and Daemon. It is said that at just 9 days old, she took Viserra on dragonback, swaddled to her chest, and even sooner with Daemon. Alyssa tragically died in 84 AC at the age of 24, while giving birth to her 3rd child, whom did not survive either. Her death deeply affected her husband, Baelon, who was devastated by the loss. Through her sons, Viserra and Daemon, Alyssa's legacy would live on and play a significant role in shaping Targaryen history. Septa Maegelle was the 2nd daughter of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa. She was born into a time of peace and prosperity during her parents' reign. Like her siblings, she inherited the Valyrian features of silver gold hair and purple eyes. As a child, Maegelle attached herself to her elder sister, Alyssa, whom did the best she could to evade her, bristling at the baby at her skirts. At 10 years old, Maegelle chose a life of devotion to the faith of the Seven, dedicating herself to religious service. Her mother, Queen Alyssa, respected Maegelle's choice to become a scepter and announced it was in thanks to the mother for blessing her with so many children. Though Maegelle became a scepter, she was still a very active participant in the Targaryen family and would play a major role in the lives of Daella and Saera Targaryen. Maegelle, the peacemaker, would also effectively aid in the famous 1st and 2nd quarrels of Jaehaerys and Alyssa. In 96 AC, Septa Maegelle contracted grayscale from a child she was nursing in Old Town. She died of the disease at 34 years old, making her one of the very few children of Jaehaerys and Alyssa to live a considerable amount of time. Maegelle Targaryen's life demonstrates how even members of the most powerful family in Westeros could choose a quieter path of faith and service and pave the way for many future Targaryens who chose a pious life. Vaegon Targaryen, the 4th-born son of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa, was a relatively enigmatic figure in Targaryen history. King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa assumed that Vaegon would one day marry his sister Daella, who was only 1 year younger than him. Jaehaerys told Vaegon to be kind to Daella, as she would one day become his Alyssa. However, as time passed, it became clear that the 2 children did not like one another. Vaegon considered his sister to be dense. Daella found Vaegon to be mean and frightening. Jaehaerys still believed that the 2 would eventually warm to one another, but their disdain only increased. When Vaegon was asked when the 2 would wed, he responded by saying she needed to find a husband who wanted stupid children, as those were the only kind she would be able to birth. Daella fled the hall in tears, and it was then that Alyssa emptied a flagon of wine over Vaegon's head, which did not impress him. Instead, Vaegon simply told his sister that she had wasted Arbor gold before whisking off to change his clothes. When Vaegon was 15, Jaehaerys asked Grand Maester Elessar if Vaegon might become a Maester, in which he firmly replied no. He might, however, have what it takes to become an Archmaster. 3 days later, King Jaehaerys told Vaegon that he would be taking ship to Old Town, and Vaegon simply responded with, Yes, father, good. Jaehaerys would later tell Queen Alyssa that he thought Vaegon had almost smiled. After the death of Prince Baelon, King Jaehaerys summoned Vaegon back to King's Landing. It is not known whether he wanted his son to take the throne, or if wanted his son's counsel on the matter of succession. But it was Vaegon who eventually suggested that the king should call a great council to settle the issue. Archmaester Vaegon seemingly returned to his life of obscurity after the Great Council of 101. Daella Targaryen was the eighth-born child of Jaehaerys and Alyssa Targaryen. Daella was sweet and gentle, easily frightened and quick to cry. The mildest scolding would bring Daella to tears. She was afraid of gardens, bees, cats, and definitely dragons. Although she could read, she would do so without full comprehension and was unable to memorize the simplest prayers. Her parents once thought she would marry her brother Vaegon, but this proved to be a hopeless match, and so Queen Alyssa was left with the task of finding a husband for her daughter. Daella traveled to Driftmark to meet Corlys Velaryon, but when returned, she said he seemed to like his boats better than he liked her. She proved to be smitten by Royce Blackwood. However, when Daella learned that House Blackwood did not follow the faith of the Seven, but instead worshipped the old gods, she was horrified and told her mother she would go to hell. King Jaehaerys told Queen Alyssa that he wanted Daella wed before the year was over, declaring he no longer cared to whom, so long as she did marry. He told his wife he can find 100 men and line them up before Daella naked, and she can pick the one she likes. But Alyssa said it would likely frighten the princess. Jaehaerys responded by saying 100 naked ducks would make her cry. And since joining the faith was not an option, seeing as they would not accept a girl that could not read the prayers, Jaehaerys proposed to send her to the Silent Sisters. Alyssa explained to Daella what Jaehaerys had commanded, and demanded she choose between Boromund Baratheon, Tywin Lannister, and Roderick Arryn. Despite the significant age gap, Daella eventually chose Lord Roderick, declaring to Alyssa that he seemed good and wise, like father. And since Roderick already fathered 4 children from an earlier marriage, Daella declared, "I'm to be their new mother." Queen Alyssa's response to this was not recorded. However, Grandmaster Elizar is reported to have only said, "Gods be good." Roderick proved to be kind and caring to Daella. He pampered and protected her, and though her relationship with his youngest daughters was pleasant, it was said to not be the same for his eldest daughter. After a year and a half of marriage, Daella wrote to her mother to inform her that she was pregnant and frightened, and asking her to come. Alyssa flew to her daughter on Silverwing, arriving 3 months before Daella was due. Alyssa remained with Daella until she gave birth. Daella went into labor fortnight too early, and had a long and troubled labor. Although the babe, Aemma Arryn, was healthy, childbed fever began soon after the birth, and Daella eventually died at the age of 18. Daella's death was the first hint of the rift that was to open between King Jaehaerys Targaryen and his queen, as Alyssa believed her husband had pushed Daella into marriage at too early an age. Daella's legacy would soon play a vital role in the Targaryen bloodline, as her one child, Aemma Arryn, would later marry her cousin Viserys Targaryen and become the mother of Rhaenyra Targaryen, one of the central figures in the Dance of the Dragons. Saera Targaryen, born in 67 AC, was considered a vain, flirtatious, and headstrong princess. She was well sought after in court and had great ambitions as a child. The princess would have been content, but found herself to be overlooked as she was the 9th child of Jaehaerys and Alyssa. Saera was often at the center of many pranks. She would taunt her sister Daella with cats and bees. She once slipped into the White Sword Tower and dyed all the white cloaks pink, and she would find ways to steal cakes and pies from the kitchens. By 11, she would be stealing wine and ale instead. In 84 AC, 2 men of the City Watch caught Saera's 3 good companions at the Blue Pearl, playing a vulgar prank on the court's fool Tom Turnip. When one of the young lords admitted the joke had been Saera's idea, the 3 lordlings were brought before King Jaehaerys. Once they were before the king, neither of the 3 dared to say a word about Saera, so they were thrown in the black cells. Queen Alyssa, however, called for Saera's two lady friends, Lady Perianne Moore and Lady Alice Turnberry, to be questioned. The two girls quickly revealed that the three had done a lot more than pranks on the court fool. The two did not even know of the prank on Tom, and begun confessing to practicing at kissing one another. When the girls dared each other to kiss a real boy, Saera had proclaimed she would do one better and kiss a man grown, a knight. During this questioning, Alyssa also learned that Alice Turnberry was with child. Jaehaerys called Saera to the throne room and scolded her for the joke regarding Tom and the blue pearl, to which Saera replied, "He's a fool, and that's what fools are meant for. He likes it when we laugh at him." But Saera quickly learned she was there to answer for far more than what occurred with the court's fool. Alyssa told her they were aware that Alice Turnberry was pregnant, and her three favorite lordlings had been imprisoned. Saera then began to ramble on for the span of an hour. According to Septon Bath, Saera went from denial to dismissal, to quibbling to contrition, to accusation, to justification, to defiance. When Saera finally fell silent, Jaehaerys asked his daughter, "What have you done? Did you give your maidenhead to any of these three men?" To which Saera replied, "No, I gave it to all three." They all three believed they had been the first silly fools. Saera then said she knew she would have to wed now, but that she could not decide which one of the three would be the best choice. She suggested marrying all three of them, as Aegon the Conqueror and Maegelle the Cruel had done. The latter comparison enraged King Jaehaerys. He rose from the throne and spat. "You would compare yourself to Maegelle? Is that who you aspire to be?" She was then carried off in tears to confinement, where she would later escape and attempt to enter the dragon pit, only to be caught by the dragon keepers. Jaehaerys is said to have only replied, "Saera, with a dragon." Would she have taken Balerion as well? Saera's 5 companions in crime were dealt with, but Sir Braxton Beesbury, the leader of the group, requested a trial by combat. When he asked, "Which one of the old men do you mean for me to fight?" King Jaehaerys replied, "This old man, the one whose daughter you seduced and spoiled." Saera was forced to watch from the window of her cell while her father slew her lover. A fortnight later, they sent Saera to Old Town, where her sister Maegelle was to take charge of her care. The king and queen knew she was not meant to be a scepter or a silent sister, but had hopes that a little time away in prayer would be punishment enough to set her on the right path. The two were wrong. After a year with the faith, Saera finally made her escape. They would not find any trace of Saera until a year later, when the princess was seen in a Lyseni pleasure house. When Alyssa heard of the news, she wept, saying the Lyseni had turned Saera into a whore, to which Jaehaerys replied that she had always been one. Following the death of 3 of Saera's sisters within a span of 5 years, Queen Alyssa begged King Jaehaerys to bring Saera home. Jaehaerys refused to do so, declaring he did not want to hear her name again. Alyssa would write to Saera every now and then, although Saera would never reply. Saera Targaryen, infamous but wealthy, left Lys for Volantis a few years before 99 AC. In Volantis, she became the proprietor of a famous pleasure house, never to associate with her family again. Viserra Targaryen was born to King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa in 71 AC. She was their 10th child and 6th daughter. Known for her stunning looks, Viserra was considered one of the most beautiful women of her time. Her beauty often drew admiration, but it also fueled her vanity. Viserra had great ambitions to become a queen, and she had her eyes set on her brother Baelon, who had been a widower since the death of his sister-wife Alyssa, and was heir to the throne. Queen Alyssa, however, was determined to prevent the marriage, and in 86 AC, she betrothed her daughter to Theomore Manderley, Lord of White Harbour. Viserra was not happy about the match, so she turned to her father for help, who refused to interfere. Viserra then turned to Baelon, hoping he would rescue her. One night, she slipped past Baelon's guards and climbed naked into his bed, but Baelon sent his drunk sister away when he arrived. Not long after, Viserra, eager for one last night of laughter, traded clothes with one of her maids and slipped from the Red Keep with her companions. Near midnight, the princess and her friends decided to compete in a drunken horse race back to the Red Keep. At the foot of Aegon's high hill, Viserra's horse collided with the mare of one of her companions. Viserra was thrown from her saddle into a wall, and she died of a broken neck at the age of 15. The death of Princess Viserra weighed heavily on her brother Baelon, who questioned if he should have been less harsh to his sister when he found her in his bedchamber. The Queen Alyssa was distraught, as she had at the time, lost 3 daughters in a span of 3 years. Gael Targaryen was the 13th and last-born child to Jaehaerys and Alyssa Targaryen. Born in 80 AC, Gael was known as the Winter Child, as she was born during the winter of her parents' lives. After the death of her sisters Alyssa, Daella, and Viserra, and 2 brothers, Aemond and Valerian, whom did not live to see their first name days, Gael became Alyssa's constant shadow. She would become a source of comfort to the queen and even slept with her in her bed. In 99 AC, Gael disappeared from court. It was announced that she had died of a summer fever, but after the deaths of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alyssa, it was revealed that Gael had been seduced and impregnated by a traveling singer. She had given birth to a stillborn son, and overwhelmed by her grief, she walked into Blackwater Bay and drowned. Queen Alyssa never recovered from losing Gael. Alyssa herself would die on Dragonstone less than 1 year after Princess Gael Targaryen in 100 AC.